Welcome back, Pixel Nation Comics Division here. How the hell are you? So, by now I'm sure you probably heard about Jordan Peele's comments about not casting white leads. I'm not really sure how much I have to say on it, so this may be a bit of a short video. Also, if you watched last week's Friday Night Tights, you probably have a good idea what I'm going to say, but I'm going to go and elaborate on some things. I don't see myself casting a white dude as the lead in my movie. Not that I don't like white dudes, he said, nodding over to his moderator pal, Roberts, but I've seen that movie. The line drew loud applause and shouts of agreement. Now, I don't have any issues with what he said. I don't like people dictating to me how I should go and create my art or what characters I should use in my story. Now, I've said this a few times before, it's also not the job of entertainment to validate your existence. It's there to entertain you, not give meaning to your life. I don't get the mentality of it being a political decision if you don't include certain types of people. I did a whole video on this, and if you'd like to go and check it out, it'll be showing up in one of the corners. That being said, the same thing applies to Jordan Peele. If this is the direction he wants to take with his art and his career, I certainly support him and don't have an issue with it. Now, if he sees that there's a deficiency in Hollywood and he thinks he can solve it, by all means, please take care of it. I would rather have someone go and solve their own problems rather than look at me and demand that I do something for them. However, I do think it's funny that the far left is falling all over themselves applauding and supporting his statements while ignoring how discriminatory they actually are. And yes, what he said was discriminatory. If he didn't say anything, nobody would have had a problem with it. Tyler Perry makes unapologetically black movies, and nobody complains about that. Probably because he didn't open his mouth and say, you know what, I'm not going to hire any white dudes as leads. However, you know that if a white director said, I don't see myself casting black dudes as leads in my movie. It's not that I don't like black dudes, but I've seen that movie. You know people would be losing their shit, and your average intersectional feminist would be shitting kittens over that statement. He would be decried as a racist, dragged through the streets of Hollywood, and then nailed up onto a fence in front of a studio for all to see as a warning. And you know that people are going to try and rationalize away Jordan's statements, but it still doesn't make it any less discriminatory. And if you fail to recognize that, then I don't know what to tell you other than the fact that you're either being willfully ignorant or dishonest. Now, if you're just a random SJW showing up and watching my video and want to use white privilege as defense for Jordan's statements, know this.
Koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain, no fucks given.
Oh, you knew I was going to be working that in at some point, didn't you? Yeah, so I don't exactly buy into any of that privilege nonsense, so don't waste your time leaving a comment because I don't fucking care. That whole privilege thing is nothing more than original sin to me, and I'm not very religious. The other issue I have is I kind of feel like Jordan would be limiting himself. One of these days, I'd love to see a adaptation of In the Mountains of Madness, and Jordan Peele could be the guy that directed it. The studio execs could be like, who could we get to direct this film? It's a great concept. Oh, what about that Jordan Peele guy? He probably won't be interested because he just does those black movies. And then the viewing public will be robbed of a great movie by Jordan Peele. Or maybe not, I'm just kind of pulling shit out of my ass at this point. But I do think that he could simply be pigeonholed as the quote-unquote black director. Something very similar happened to comic book writer Christopher Priest. In an interview with CBR, Christopher Priest had this to say. Every 18 months or so, I would get a call from Marvel or DC or some independent publisher. Hey, we've got this great book coming up and we want you to write it. Invariably, it would be a character of color, usually an African American character. There were lots of reasons why I just kind of dropped out of comics 8 or 9 years ago, but part of the reason was I started in the business as a writer, writing Spider-Man, Power Man, and Iron Fist at Marvel. At DC, I was doing The Ray, Action Comics, Green Lantern, Emerald Dawn, things like that. Somehow, over time, I stopped being a writer and became a black writer. I'm not really sure exactly how that happened. It's not that I was unwilling to work in the industry, or that I quit or retired or anything like that. It's just, this is what I was being offered. I was being offered exclusively black characters. By making a statement like this, Jordan Peele makes himself a black director, rather than a director who happens to be black. And maybe one of these days he might change his mind. Or maybe not. It's not like I can predict the future or anything, because I can't. It's just something that could happen. It really is one of the best, greatest pieces of the story, is feeling like we are in this time. A renaissance has happened and proved the myths about representation in the industry are false. Now, I'm not exactly sure what myths he's referring to. Is it that black leads aren't successful and those movies don't make money? And if that's the case, I completely disagree with him. I remember there being a lot of really great movies in the 90s starring black actors. Personally, I'm very fond of Passenger 57 and the Blade movies. And let's be honest, if you threw a rock at the 90s, odds are you'd hit a Will Smith movie. If you want to go check some of them out, there will be a link in the description to the best black movies of the 90s on IMDb. And then you have articles like this from the Mary Sue. Deprioritizing white actors and whiteness in casting is a part of parody. So, I'm not exactly sure what this means, but it sounds pretty damn racist. According to Wikipedia, so take it for what it's worth, in the United States, 37,144,530 non-Hispanic blacks make up the population, which is about 12.1%. Now here's a problem with the whole parody thing. If you have more black directors and black actors that are over 12.1% in Hollywood, then they're being overrepresented. And according to datausa.io, 14.9% of actors are black or African American, which means they actually are being overrepresented. 7.78% of producers and directors are black or African American, which means they are being underrepresented. And again, this is all according to parody.
But Comics Division, you're oversimplifying things. This doesn't include leads.
Yeah, well, you're correct, but what do you expect for a video that's being made at 1 o'clock in the morning on Monday? This is more research than I normally do. Oh, and by the way, I'll have a link in the description for the stats I just used. The thing that I find kind of annoying about this whole thing whenever I hear someone saying that there isn't enough representation in XYZ, I'm kind of left wondering, what exactly is enough? When do we have the right amount? These are answers that we never get. And the reason why is it's kind of unrealistic. There has been a huge push in the tech industry to get 50-50 gender parity by tech companies. And you know what? This is never gonna happen. There simply isn't enough women interested in going into tech. Because preferences. And as far as I can tell, there aren't any barriers to entry when it comes to becoming a director or an actor. And the fact that it's really fucking hard for everybody. But again, that doesn't mean that there isn't racism in Hollywood, because I'm pretty sure there is. So now I'll pass it on to you fine folks. What are your thoughts? Like I said, I don't have much of a problem with what Jordan Peele said. If he wants to create more opportunities for black actors, more power to him. Hopefully that means we'll just get more great movies. Hey Jordan, while you're at it, can you resurrect Wesley Snipes' career? I know he's kinda old now, but it would be kinda cool to see him in another action film. So if you enjoyed this video, go and hit that like button. Or you can hate like it. Subscribe for more of my crappy content and shitty opinions. You can go and find me on Twitter and Gab by searching for @ComicsDivision, and you can also find me on BitChute. I'll see you next time, folks.